Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing good. Today we learn concept of NAT gateway. What is NAT gateway and where do we apply that NAT gateway? NAT stands for Network Address Translation. The NAT gateway you will find under VPC session. When you go to the virtual private cloud, you will see something called NAT gateways here. What is network address translation? That we are gonna learn first, and we'll see how to implement that next session. For example, if you have two kinds of servers in your application, whether it is a web server, database server, you want to protect your application from internet reachability, right? So for example, you want to keep always the database servers in your private networks and the web servers in your public networks. This is what your project scenario. And this database servers wanted to connect to internet and get some updates like patchings and some OS updates that is required. If they are in the private subnet, they will not be able to reach internet directly. As I mentioned in previous session, if you want to connect to your server to your internet, you required IZW, that is internet gateway, right? That is a two-way communication allowed. So if you place your database servers in public subnets, then even the internet can connect to your servers and your server will connect to internet, but you don't want that type of communication, but you just required only your server has to connect to internet, but otherwise not allowed. So how that can be achieved? That can be achieved via NAT gateway. I'll show you how you can implement that. So you have a project VPC, as we will be discussing from past few sessions, and now I am dividing my subnets into public and private subnets. For example, you have two private subnets and two public subnets, and I have two machines deployed. One is web server, and that is deployed in public subnet, means it has a public IP associated with that server, and also the internet gateway is attached to that VPC, so you will be able to reach internet and vice versa. And I have a database server, and that doesn't have any public IP associated with that, and I have deployed this in a private subnet. If you see the networking configuration, it has been deployed in a private subnet. Okay, and yeah, as you are seeing, it doesn't have any public IP associated, it only have a private IP associated, right? So you cannot connect to this server directly since this doesn't have a public IP associated. Then how can you validate this is what we are going to check now. When you create the subnets, you don't have an option to select whether it should be a public or private. How you can control the traffic? That is based on your routing table, right? So for that I have created two separate routing tables, project public routing table and project private routing table, and the public subnets I have associated with the public routing table and private subnets I have associated with private routing table. How can you edit this subnet association? You have an option here, you can edit, go ahead and edit here. Okay, so my private routing table is associated with private subnets. In the similar fashion, public routing table is associated with public subnets. and the routing can be controlled via routes that we have added to this routing table, right? So when you go to my public routing table, if you see on edit routes, by default you will have a local routing. Within VPC you can connect to any resources. Other than this IP address, if any other traffic is coming, that we are routing towards internet gateway in public routing table. But this kind of route we don't require. We don't want to do this kind of routing in our database service. So what we are doing now, we'll go ahead and create an NAT gateway. Create a NAT gateway. Project NAT gateway. I'll call it as project NAT gateway. You can call it whatever the name that you want. And I'm deploying that in my project VPC, and just go ahead and deploy that. Go to your routing table, your private routing table, right? Your public can go to ICW, but your private has to go via NAT gateway. That is what we are achieving now. Just go ahead and edit the route, add the route. Other than this local, if you get any other traffic, we are routing towards NAT gateway. Just select the NAT gateway that you have created recently and save the changes. Okay, now let's go and connect to the servers and let's see if that works. This is our web server that is deployed in public. So as I have a public IP address associated with that, I'll be able to connect to this server. But in real-time scenarios, you'll not be having a public address, but you will be having only the private address. When you're in your office network, that private address range is allowed to connect. So for testing purpose, I'm using the public address concept. Just copy the public address and go to the putty tool. These servers are Amazon Linux machines, so the usernames for these machines are EC2-user. If you are using a Ubuntu machine, the username would be Ubuntu. So whenever you're giving the host name in putty, you have to make sure that username is correct with server that you are trying to connect. As I have deployed Amazon Linux machines, I am giving it as EC2-user at the IP address of the server. And I will be selecting the private key to connect to that machine and click OK. I am able to connect to that machine now. If you see ping google.com, yes, you are able to reach the internet because this is a public server, right? Now you have to test by connecting to your server that is deployed in a private subnet. and try to connect to internet. We'll see if that works. So to connect to that server, first you need the PEM file to be copied to this machine. I have already copied the PEM file to this machine via nano key.pem. That has gone already, so let me copy once again. So if you want to copy any of the files to your machine, you can use any of your text editors in LNXbox. I am good with nano, so I'll be using nano. If you do nano key.pem, it will open a text editor. You just go ahead and paste your PEM file, Control O, that will write, enter, Control X. Just make sure you have key copied here. When you do nano key.pem once again, it will open and you can validate whether that key.pem is copied to your machine or not. With this PEM file only you will be able to connect to other machine. As we discussed previously, if the two machines are in the same network, those two are able to communicate with each other. With that concept, we will be connecting to other private machine from this public machine. So SSH-I, and you have to provide your PEM file, and you need a private IP address of your database server. Uh, 10.59.363. EC2-user @ once again 10.59.363. 10.59.363. Yes. Okay, now you are getting this error. This key doesn't have a permission, so that has been disabled. Once you copy the key, you have to provide permissions of 400 to that key. chmod 400 key.pem. So the key permissions, that .pem key permissions has been changed. Now you try to connect once again. Yes, you are able to connect now. You can see EC2-user @ 10.59.363. You are in this machine. Now let's do the same test in this private machine as well. Ping google.com. Yes, now you are able to connect to google.com. How? Though it doesn't have internet gateway associated with this machine, there is no route towards the internet. How you are able to connect? That is because of your NAT gateway. NAT gateway allows you to connect to internet, but if you connect to this machine via internet, it is not possible because this doesn't have a public IP associated with this, and also there is no route to connect to this machine. It is not associated with IZW. IZW is the only way that internet can connect to your database server. I hope you understand what is the purpose of NAT gateway and how you can utilize that. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see you in the next session.